What up? What up? What up? It's Ibn Webb, Ib Webb, Piranha, some here, official thanks thing going on here. Got an Essex County all day edition here. Excited about this, and I know I say this all the time. I'm excited about all of them here. Just doing this, and particularly the Essex County stuff. You know, when I had a list or this list that I'll probably never get to, as far as getting everybody here, male, female, what have you here. Coach Rich San Filippo, he was one of them. I just always just remember hearing his name and just the teams that he coached and just how great of a person he was here. And I was just hoping one day I get an opportunity when I started this to get a chance to talk with him. So I was able to reach out to him. Said not a problem. And again, like the little kid comes into me as far as when you're having these early conversations with a lot of people here, because I just get back to that little teenager in me, just how coaches are, just how they just command, and their presence is just so something to be revered, and continue to do so here. But enough of me just talking about that. Just love to get to know a little bit about them, and that's what we're gonna do here. So just hold tight. How you doing, Coach?
Oh, we're good.
We're
Right?
good now. We're perfect.
Yeah, now,
We're perfect now.
if this wasn't for my wife, I would not be here talking to you because she set everything up.
Interesting with the wives. I always said to myself with these, I'm just going to do an excerpt with all the difficulty people have getting on with the wives' help with them, because I get a kick out of that.
Yeah, I'm
How
not
you doing,
not a
sir?
big techie.
That's perfectly fine here.
Yeah.
How you doing, Coach?
I'm doing great. Doing
Good,
great.
good.
I'm not real happy with the weather, but I'm doing great.
Good. I know we'll get through it. It's that February month here, so and
Yeah.
I know when we talked beforehand, you're supposed to be in Florida, so I know that's
Yeah, and I think I'm taking a trip out to Palm Springs next week. I have two daughters out there, one in LA and one in San Francisco, and I might be able to play a little golf and meet up with both of them. So looking forward to it.
Good. That's all right.
Yeah.
I just want to say thank you just for taking some time out to just talk with me a little bit. I really appreciate this.
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity. I had followed some of your interviews with people on the Facebook page.
Okay.
I guess it comes up every week, and I know you sent me the link that you interviewed Chet, who was way back then was a colleague, and appreciate the opportunity.
No. Likewise. And even with all that being said here, are you originally a Jersey guy, or are you from?
Oh yeah, I was born and raised in Belleville.
Okay.
And going back in the born and raised and most of my years were in the 50s and 60s, and it was a much different scenario then, as far as if you were a sports kid than it is now. We grew up on the streets. We played whatever sport was in season. You could go in my neighborhood. You could find on any block in the summer, kids were either playing box ball or some form of stickball or wiffle ball. And if you went 3 blocks up, there'd be a different group of kids playing a different game. We went up to the playground, and I think our grammar school playground, we probably still have the ball and strike box that we painted on the wall of the school, and that's where we played stickball. And then in the fall, you'd find kids who were playing touch football on the street. If a car was coming down the street, everybody yelled "car."
That's right.
And in the later in the fall, we tried to get a basketball hoop to play on. I remember right around the block from where I lived in Belleville, there was a kid who had a basketball hoop, and if nobody was around in the winter, you could take your basketball, ring his doorbell, and you'd pay him a nickel to shoot on his hoop for a half hour. And then we all played, little league, baseball and little league football. I'll tell you the truth, back then, it wasn't organized really until about the 7th grade.
Okay.
And there weren't many parents to be found.
Mm.
And even in those organized games, and that's really a different scenario than it is today, isn't it?
Oh, totally.
Yeah. So I was a Belleville kid, and when I got into high school, we played in the old Big Ten conference. Our rivals were against Nutley, Bloomfield, Montclair, East Orange, Irvington. Kearney was in the league then.
Okay.
And it was, obviously those leagues have all broken up. But, it's a pretty vivid memory. And I still keep in contact with some of the guys that we played against, going back as far as like 1965.
Yeah, wow.
Still see some of them, still communicate with some of them.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I was just on Facebook. I had seen a name on a kid that played for Caldwell, and his mother's maiden name was Trezuzzi.
Mm-hmm.
And I know I played basketball against a kid from Bloomfield named Jimmy Trezuzzi. I just made contact with him last night. And that was going back to 1966, 67. So.
Yeah, and again, obviously, that's some of the pros even with technology here. Just make these connections and still link up with people that you might have lost gap of time here. That's definitely a plus.
I didn't know anything about it. My wife actually put me on Facebook about 3 years ago, and I said, "What did you do that for?" But it's been valuable. I've been able to make contact with people that I haven't spoken with in a lot of years, and it's been like a nice tool. And I can actually navigate myself without her help. But
yeah, a little practice. That's all. A little repetition. You get it.
Yeah. I went to Belleville High School. I was a 3-sport guy, which you don't find many of those anymore. You barely find 2-sport kids, but I played football, basketball, and baseball there, and in the 60s, I guess 1963 through 67. And the first thing I have to tell you about that was I played for great coaches, and I think that everybody that participates remembers the coaches that they played for.
Yes.
I'm sure I had spoken to you. You played at Immaculate, and John Finnegan was your coach, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah. I know some of the guys that coached and were athletic directors and so forth at Immaculate. My coaches, I played for Tom Testa in football, very well-respected guy, wound up coaching at Montclair State after he left Belleville. I played basketball and I'm not sure that you would know this name, Al Labalbo.
Okay.
Al Labalbo, anybody that is, maybe around my era would know the name. Al Labalbo was basically the guy who, if you play man-to-man defense, even to today, you're probably using some of the principles that he taught. Before he came to Belleville, he coached at St. Mary's Elizabeth, had some great teams. When he left Belleville, he went to Fairleigh Dickinson University, the Division I program, as the head coach, and then wound up on the bench at St. John's with Louis Carnesecca as an assistant.
Wow.
And he was a mentor to Bobby Knight. I'm not saying he taught Bobby Knight's defense, but they they use the principles of hard defense, ball you man, double team at the baseline, don't allow baseline drives, inside cuts,
Yes.
double team and rotate. It's his principles are shared by so many coaches now. And I was really fortunate to play for him. And in baseball, I played for two guys, Nick Petty and Charlie Travers. In baseball, we were, through my 3 years as a starter there, we were top 5 program in New Jersey.
Wow. What position you played?
I'm sorry?
What position did you play in baseball?
I was a shortstop.
Okay.
And I also remember and I try to instill this in the teams I coached, the leaders that were the players. I still remember, because I saw a picture of him on Facebook about 3 days ago. In football, I had 2 captains, Lenny Longo and Joe Savazio. Lenny went on to play at Virginia Tech, and Joe went on to play at Cornell.
Mm-hmm.
And as a starting sophomore against East Orange, defending state champ, I was like 155-pound sophomore, and I had a little concern. But Joe and Lenny, as captains, senior captains, they set such a great example of how to be an athlete.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something you carry with, throughout certainly your playing career. In baseball, I mentioned we were a top 5 program. It was about that time when the Greater Newark tournament wasn't. Right now, I guess it's the Essex County tournament.
Right.
Back in the 60s and 70s, it was an invitational tournament of the 16 best teams in the state.
Oh wow! I didn't know that.
So it was more selective.
Mm-hmm.
It was ultra competitive, and as a sophomore, we got beaten in the semifinals by Parsippany, that had 2 future major leaguers playing. Richie Zisk had about a 10-year plus career in the major leagues. And then as a junior, we lost in the semifinals to Union, which had Elliot Maddox and Al Santorini. Elliot Maddox wound up playing with the Yankees. Al Santorini was I don't know if you'd use the term of a high school kid as legendary, but I think his high school record was 35-1.
Ooh.
He was signed originally by the Braves at a bonus, and back in the 60s, there weren't many bonus kids.
Mm-hmm.
And we wound up losing to Union in the semifinals 2-1.
That's tough. That's tough.
Yeah. And it was, I think it was at Woodman Field in Montclair that we played that game. And they had just a terrific team loaded with talent. And, we had a really had a great high school experience. I don't remember more than a few days coming home after school. Unless it was between the seasons. You probably had about 4 or 5 days between football and baseball season, and maybe 10 days between basketball and baseball season. And those were the only days I remember coming home from school in the afternoon.
Mm-hmm. Weird just coming home. Yeah.
And I wouldn't have it any other way. I know now that there aren't many kids that are 3-sport kids, and maybe we'll talk about that a little later, about the specialization that kids go through now, and maybe they pick one sport early.
Mm-hmm.
But there were a lot of kids in the Big Ten Conference that were 2 and 3-sport kids.
Interesting. And then you mentioned football. What position did you play on football?
Well, I was an end and I was a defensive back. And back in those days, you were either a right end or a left end. You weren't a tight end or a split end. and you blocked on some plays, and you were the targeted receiver on other plays. We just played against some quality, real quality teams. When you look at the teams back then of East Orange was really in the middle 60s, along with Montclair, like one of the programs in the state. They were coached by a guy named Tom Dean, and we had some really serious, tough rivalry games against those teams. And Nutley was another top program, and it was a little ironic that my last stop in my coaching career, I was a Belleville kid who grew up with Nutley as our arch rival, and I wound up coaching at Nutley.
Yeah.
A little bit unusual.
Yeah, I'm sure, some conversations is going on about that.
Yeah. And I went on to Montclair State, where both of my brothers went. It was sort of like almost preordained. I had some opportunities to look at some, out of state schools, but we even if I was going to be offered some form of financial assistance, whether it was athletic or academic, it was, can you afford to go out of state? And a lot of kids that I grew up with were in the same boat. And I was recruited to play both football and baseball at Montclair State. And, I wound up choosing baseball actually as my major sport, and wound up starting 4 years of baseball at Montclair State. And, talk about coaches, I played my last 2 years there for Clary Anderson, who, if you're a Montclair guy, Clary is, you talk about legendary. Clary is probably one of the legendary coaches in the recent history of New Jersey sports. He coached both football and baseball at Montclair State. And at the end of my 4 years there, I was fortunate enough to be in the Major League Draft in 1971. I was drafted late rounds, second day, by the Montreal Expos organization. And I spent a season playing minor league baseball in the New York Penn League. And I got released at the end of the season. And I had a couple of opportunities, thinking about, well, do I try to catch on with another baseball organization? A teammate of mine from Montclair State made the suggestion that we go play baseball in Italy. In Europe, there were baseball leagues, that allowed a certain number of, for instance, the Italian baseball league, they allowed 4 Italian Americans to play on their team. They would pay you, they put you up, and the level of baseball was pretty good. But I kind of weighed, I had a contract to teach and coach at Glen Ridge.
Okay.
And I'm weighing, do I keep taking this chance of continuing a baseball career, or I got a job and it pays money, and I'm living at home, and I'm gonna pay rent, which kids don't do now. But I wound up making a sound decision to take the teaching and coaching job at Glen Ridge, and that was my first stop.
Okay. Now, when you say coaching, initially, as far as it was football that you went to Glen Ridge to coach, or was it baseball? Or
I started out coaching football and baseball there.
Okay.
After about 5 years, I gave up the the baseball end of it. And I was an assistant to, I'm going to talk a little bit about mentors.
Mm-hmm.
My first real mentor as far as coaching, was Bill Horry. Bill was a head coach at Glen, and he had a outstanding track record of terrific programs. And I was his assistant for 8 years. I spent 4 years as a freshman coach and 4 years as his varsity assistant. And more than just like what I learned about X's and O's, it was he taught he taught me how to coach kids, how to speak to them, how to treat them, how hard you can get on them. And he was just a great example. And he became a great friend even after I left Glenridge. He introduced me to the bagel breakfast on game day.
Okay.
And it was a real surprise to me. He would actually invite the opposing coach who came into our field house. I guess you know where the Glenridge field house is.
Right there, Bloomfield Avenue.
Bloomfield Avenue there.
Yes.
He'd call the opposing coach up, and the opposing coach would come up, have a cup of coffee with us. We'd probably trade insults, but but it was not a I'll kill you kind of mentality. Don't get me wrong, it was really competitive, but it was just a different approach to coaching, and I learned a lot from his example of your coaching staff is a family.
Yes.
I guess it was in 1979. I was 29 years old, and Mr. Horry had a decision to make. He retired from coaching. He was the athletic director, and he recommended that I become the head coach at 29 years old. And I thought I was ready, but looking back, since my first game, we played Montclair Immaculate and lost 31-6.
That was the first game interesting.
First game as a head coach.
Okay.
I actually had my family there. My brother, my mother came to the game. My sister, who wouldn't know football from a baseball, and we're all ready and juiced up, and we got murdered. But after the second game, I made one quarterback change, and we ran off 5 wins in a row. And all of a sudden, I think maybe I'm ready for this. And the second year of coaching, we won the Group 1 state championship in 1980 against Roosevelt Park. And one of the things I want to emphasize is, whenever you win or win big, you have to have players.
Yes.
And we did. We won 2 state championships at Glenridge in 80 and 82. We had a 4-year in a row run of playoffs, and had some really outstanding players. I just spoke with a couple of them, the Ortman kids, who played for me all through most of my 4 years there, and just spoke with a player of mine, Pete Anderson, who was one of my only Division I scholarship kids throughout my career. He played at Georgia.
Okay, wow. Yeah, back in the 80s, that's something, yes.
Yeah, and I just made a call to him to congratulate him on Georgia's
it's national championship.
Championship. That happened, the first round they beat Michigan, and my daughter went to Michigan. I'm a big Michigan fan, and that didn't work out too well. But had a conversation with him, And then after I guess it was 5 or 6 years as a head coach there, and 14 years total coaching there, I made a decision to go take the football job at Verona.
Now, before you go to Verona, pardon me, Glen Ridge, what conference even back then? Was it the Colonial Hills back then, or was it something else?
That was the Colonial Hills Conference.
Okay.
I know that all the conference names have changed now, but that was a Colonial Hills Conference. And our schedule included Immaculate, where you played, Chatham, Borough, Chatham Beach, Mountain Lakes. I would have to say Mountain Lakes was our arch rival then.
Mm-hmm. Wing T still back then too?
Oh yeah,
still
all the way through.
Yeah.
Doug Wilkins,
yes,
was the head coach for I couldn't tell you how many years, maybe 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
And they ran the same offense, wing T, just like you said.
Mm-hmm.
Which, you think after many times that you see it, it would get easier to defend. But he was such a meticulous coach that they were a tough team to beat. We had some really terrific games with Mountain Lakes. And when I went to Verona, actually, in the last couple of years, Mountain Lakes came back into our conference. So we competed against them, I would say, throughout half my head coaching career.
Yeah. How hard of a decision was that to leave Glen Ridge?
I mean, I was there for 14 years.
Okay.
I started teaching in elementary school, and I went to the middle school and then to the high school as a teacher.
Okay.
And some of those kids, I actually taught and coached probably for 10 plus years. So I knew a lot of those kids for 10 or 12 years in a professional sense. And it was a tough decision. I had gone up to Verona. I knew that Al Rotella was planning to retire, mm-hmm. and the job would be open. And I went up to see their playoff game against, I believe it was New Providence, and probably it was 1984 or 1985. And the setting was terrific. I don't know if you've been to Verona's field. They're up on the top of the hill there. And
hell yes.
And I had a terrific track record of good programs, mm-hmm. Under Coach Rotella. And I just thought it was a good opportunity. And it was almost, I'm not going to really say a move up in conference, but they were in the Northern Hills Conference. Mm-hmm. And the opponents then were Summit and Madison,
okay,
Pequannock, Orange, New Providence, and it was a challenge that I sort of relished if I was given the opportunity. And my first year of coaching there was the team in 1985, and I was there for 5 years. One of the unusual things, I guess you probably follow the football playoffs now, and I don't fully understand what the structure is now. I know there's 8 teams in the sections that get in, but back then it was 4 teams out of 25 or 26 teams in your section that got into the playoffs. And in my last year at Glen Ridge and my first 2 years at Verona, we were 22-5 and didn't get into one playoff game.
Yeah, that's tough. Man.
We lost out in 1985 and 86 by one PowerPoint.
PowerPoint.
Yeah. And I thought those teams in 85 and 86, we were playing really well at the end of the season. And, we found out we were a PowerPoint short. I thought those teams could have done well and really well in the playoffs. And, I mentioned that to the kids. My 5 years at Verona it was a great community, very supportive. The kids were terrific. Easy to coach, and good facility. I was there for 5 years, and then the opportunity came up in Nutley, the same way it came up at the end of my years at Glen Ridge. At the end of my 5 years at Verona, the Nutley job opened up.
Okay.
And, I was looking at in Verona, my last team there had 16 juniors. And I would have had 16 seniors coming back. And I think a really good team. So now, again, I'm weighing
what
to do. And there was an opportunity to coach in the NNJIL, which clearly to me was the best football conference in New Jersey. It was St. Joe's, Montville,
Bergen Catholics and all of those guys, right?
Don Bosco, Paramus Catholic, Hackensack, when Greg Toll was coaching at Hackensack before he went to Don Bosco. So now, I'm going from a group 1 conference to a group 2 conference, and now you're kind of in the soup.
Now you jump up, because Nutley back then is a group 4, I think, right? Was it group 4 back?
We were actually group 3, playing against, the Catholic schools and group 4 publics.
Okay.
I guess us and Belleville were the only Essex County teams there, and we were probably the only group 3 teams in it. So I decided, given the opportunity to get over to Nutley, where I knew a lot of people because I grew up next door.
Yes.
And we got to work, and one thing occurred that rarely occurs. My first year at Nutley, we were 1-8. And I'm wondering, was it a wise decision to
questioning yourself
leave Verona?
Yeah.
We went from 1-8 in 1990 to the state championship final in 1991. And we managed to turn things around, and we had a run there of in a 5-year period right in the middle of my stay there, where we played in 3 state championship finals and won the group 3 state championship in 92.
Okay.
With a probably might have been my best overall team.
Was Solari on that team? Was it Don?
Yeah,
Solari?
Don Solari was on that team. He was a game changer. A kid who was a tailback at 6'3", 205 and ran like a 4.59, and some really outstanding athletes.
Mark, was it a Mark
little
Smith,
more size.
Was there Mark Smith, I think, coach? Was there, I think his name was, I can't remember. Was there a kicker you had, I think, too? Mark Smith. Mark Smith, okay, yeah.
Mark Smith, yeah, he, talk about kicking the ball from the 40 into the end zone. He had like 16 touchbacks during the year.
Yeah.
Which was, I had really had a lot of teams that you had the luxury of, okay, we got to the 20-yard line, and if it's 4th and 9, we could kick a field goal.
Mm,
That
yes.
didn't happen very
At the high
much
school level, yeah,
at
definitely
the
at the
high
high
school
school.
level, but
Yeah.
with him it did. Yeah. Um, and I spent eight 8 years in Nutley, and actually my teaching career went all the way through until I was finished and retired in 2010 or 2011. But I guess after 8 years and 19 years as a head coach, I took a look at what I needed to do in the future, and I decided to get out of coaching and look into getting a master's degree, and maybe looking at some opportunities in the future.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually got my master's degree at age 50.
That's all right. That's all right. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually started to get into a program right out of Montclair State College,
Mm-hmm.
and got halfway through, and I said, I'm not really enjoying this. I'm done. I quit.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess how many years later? 25 years later or so, I wound up getting my master's degree.
Where'd you get your master's?
And beyond. Yeah.
What did you get your master's in?
I actually went to, it was the former Jersey City State College, and it was New Jersey City University.
Mm-hmm.
And I got my master's degree in urban education.
Okay.
And honestly, it was eye-opening what I didn't know about education, in particular, what went on in the cities,
Mm-hmm.
and the opportunities that they were getting now that they didn't have in the past. And I got to tell you, I really enjoyed the courses in critical thinking, in some of the papers that you had to write. And back then you didn't get anything online.
No.
You had to go into the school library.
Encyclopedias.
Yeah, use advance. Who uses encyclopedias now?
Right. Yeah.
Or get in the library, and in the basement of the library they had microfilm.
Yes.
You had to roll
yes.
it,
Mm-hmm.
and take the pencil and paper and write notes.
Yeah.
It's not like now okay, what's the topic? Look it up and you print it. It's right in front of you. Mm. But it was it turned out to be a really terrific experience. Learning some stuff I had no idea about.
Mm-hmm. No, definitely learning. I mean, especially when you challenge yourself and learn new things here. I mean, it just opens you up here. And in regards to your master's degree here, I know you talked about as far as just opening some new opportunities. What did it present for you?
Yeah, I had applied for a number of positions, and it was actually during my, and maybe we can talk about this a little bit. I officiated high school and college basketball for probably a total of 30 years.
Yes.
And this was during the time that I was officiating college basketball. And I'm applying to some positions, and I really didn't want to give up the officiating end of it.
Mm-hmm.
So those positions never really worked out. And I didn't regret it, because the stuff that I learned, and the fact that I had a master's degree and 30 credits beyond, it worked on the pay scale, certainly.
Yes.
But I had invested in so many years in basketball officiating that I wrote it to the end. I started out, refereeing high school basketball
mm-hmm.
in local leagues, and I think the guys that started out with me, we all had some goals, and one of my goals was, probably when I started out, I had mentors.
Yes.
Guys like Charlie Travers, Phil Miller. When I started refereeing college basketball, it was Timmy Higgins, Jim Burr, Mickey Crowley, Larry Lembo, all guys that worked Final Fours and national championship games. But one of my goals was to work an Essex County tournament final.
Okay.
And that took a long time. I worked everywhere. I worked in the suburban leagues. I worked in the Newark City League. I worked in the Union County League. I worked in Hudson County. And all different scenarios, all different intensities. You know, some stories I probably can't tell you, but
understandable.
yeah. I used to, and my guys that broke in with me, we used to find out where the top referees were working. And on a Friday night, we'd meet for dinner or for a beer. And they'd talk to us about the games they refereed. You know, we might have been working a Cedar Grove Caldwell game, but they were working a Plainfield East Orange game.
Okay.
Or the guys in Hudson County might have been working a St. Anthony's Snyder game. And we learned from them. We'd work in summer leagues. I remember Charlie Travers and Phil Miller getting a bunch of young guys and on a kitchen table and working in what position you are in a three-man game and where you should be looking, right, and why you shouldn't always be looking at the ball and so forth. And that was invaluable.
Yeah, that's the last thing you should do. I'm a basketball official, so I'm aware as far as
are you? Yeah.
Be positioned at and what you should be looking at. I mean, I know it took me forever to stop watching the ball.
Watching the ball.
Yes.
Absolutely. Because there's a lot of mayhem that could break out right in front of you. And if you're watching the ball all the time, you don't see it.
Yes.
But I guess somewhere in the maybe late 70s or not, probably in the early 1980s, I got a call and worked my first Essex County tournament final.
Which one was it?
At Walsh Auditorium in
Austin. Wow.
At Seton Hall. And I think it was Montclair, Seton Hall. And Montclair, Bobby Lester.
Yes.
Who was a classmate of mine at Montclair State, was coaching at Montclair after he left East Orange. And I think Bobby Farrell was coaching at Seton Hall, who, just recently retired.
Right.
And he had his program going. And I remember one game, I was still teaching at Glen Ridge, and I was told that in the semifinals, if Glen Ridge won, I would not be working the finals.
So Glen Ridge made it to the semis that year.
Glen Ridge had a great team.
Okay.
Made it to the semis. And if they won, I was out because I was a teacher there.
Right.
And if they lost, I was in. So I know I'm rooting for them.
But not rooting for them.
And they got beat in the semifinals, and I was assigned the final. And to me, that was huge. To work the county tournament final. And then, your goals changed a little bit after that.
Yes.
And I started looking at some of the guys who were working college games, and even, just in the state college leagues. And how do I get there? And again, it was through some mentors and working in some of the really tough high school leagues in New Jersey of, where you learn, okay, there's different pressure levels and intensity levels. And that benefited me. And I got an opportunity to start working in the New Jersey State College Conference.
And that's competitive. Oh man, people people don't know outside of New Jersey. I mean, maybe they do, but that end jacket
Oh,
is serious.
yeah, to work, you know, Jersey City State against Trenton State. You know, the level it's a level up from the high school games that you were working.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get the opportunity. I got the opportunity to break in at the Division I level in the Northeast Conference, which was like LIU, Fairleigh, Marist.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, who knows, the hope was, you know, maybe to get into a major college conference at one time.
Okay.
And again, it takes a while. And I guess it was in 19, I guess I worked in the MAC conference from like 1983, 84. I got an assignment on paper in the mail that I got assigned to the Ohio State Maryland game in the Meadowlands. And I said, this can't be right. I hadn't been quite at that level yet, but that was actually my first, you know, big assignment. And then after working in you know, the MAC conference and the Ivies,
mm-hmm.
in 1989, I got invitations to work in the Big East and the Atlantic 10.
Wow.
And worked about 7 or 8 years in the Big East and wound up working 13 years in the Atlantic 10 conference.
Mm-hmm.
And then you learn, that was probably, I tell, you know, we did some clinics with younger guys. And I said, this is going to be 2 hours of the most intense concentration you can imagine,
mm-hmm.
because you can't let your mind wander for a second.
Mm-hmm.
You got to be on for 2 hours. And, you know, one of my mentors said, it's like you're in a vice for 2 hours.
Yeah.
Just get used to it.
Yeah. Now, pregame, how in depth, people don't understand. I mean, even I only do like the high school level, but you talk about the college level, the Big East, and all these the pregame. How important was that for you? I mean,
absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned as like, you know, there's a referee and there's 2 umpires, U1 and U2.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned from the referees, you know, the guys who had more experience, how to run a pregame,
mm-hmm.
and what to go over and what to remind each other of before you got out there. And I mean, my first Big East conference game was Villanova Syracuse in the Carrier Dome.
Oof.
And, you know, there were 26,000 people there. And before the game, you know, there's some butterflies, but once the ball goes up, you got to tune it out, and it's just basketball.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I wound up working in 6 or 7 NCAA tournaments and about the same number of NIT tournaments. And I guess it was in 2004, after 3 knee surgeries,
mm-hmm.
all because of running and sprinting and changing direction, and the fact that I was like 54 years old, and maybe you're not supposed to be doing all this and teaching at the same time. That's when I decided to get out of that. My family was growing. I had my daughters, you know, they were all growing up.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a standard saying with me and my wife at the beginning of football season, when I was combining both of these, that I'll see you sometime in March.
Yeah.
Because my seasons ran into one another. and I did it while I was teaching, and there were times I had to get on a 6 o'clock flight, out of Pittsburgh and get to Newark Airport at 7:25 and sign into school at 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
And, you're traveling at the worst time of the year.
The winter, yes.
And your supervisors don't want to know that you can't get there. If it's a 12-inch snowstorm, I had a game up in URI, and the flight was canceled. I had to get in my car and just keep driving. I checked with my supervisor. I'm in Connecticut. He says, keep driving. We got one guy there.
Mm-hmm.
And there was no, I can't make it.
Yeah.
You got to make it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a great experience. Got to see a lot of great players.
Yes.
Worked in, when I was a kid, I was a Knick fan, and I swore if I could ever step on the floor of Madison Square Garden, I'd be in heaven. And I probably refereed maybe 15, 18 games in Madison Square Garden. And it was just sort of like a goal that you never thought you'd be able to get to.
Mm-hmm.
And, all of a sudden you're thinking about the Essex County tournament final.
Yeah.
And then it didn't seem like too many years later when you're in the Carrier Dome, So it was a great opportunity. And then after I finished that, I spoke at a couple of clinics. A former assistant coach of mine, Tommy Gargiulo, who was the baseball coach at Nutley, ran some clinics and asked me to speak at a few of them. And I got involved in this, speaking about specialization of your choices of sport at a young age, which I'm not really for, except in really exceptional circumstances. And I did a little research on that in different countries, what they were doing, and even the great kids that were playing soccer in like Central America played other sports and played on the street before they got involved in specializing. And I just brought up that I talked with some doctors about the incidence of sport injuries that were seen in kids that were 18 and older were starting to be seen in kids that were 12 and 13. And it was all because of overuse and playing one sport for 3 seasons and a summer, And, I hope that some of the information that they're paying attention to, the fact that all of my friends and myself, we played multiple sports. And, I just hope that kids use their ability in a number of sports, not only to give the muscle groups that they use in one sport and then use different muscle groups in another sport and compete against different kids. That was, I look at it as an important topic, to get debated.
No, definitely. And I know for me, as you say that, I mean, I just enjoyed the change as far as playing different sports. For me, I enjoyed the change. And to your point, I totally agree. I mean, certain circumstances, I understand. But it's not like the majority of the kids are doing that. And it's just like you have that one trainer for the whole year for that one sport. It's just like, again, I don't want to be the grumpy guy. I don't want to be the grumpy old guy here. But, I know about evolving, but it's got to be a balance.
Yeah. And it's a demand on both the kids and the parents that, the expense of the travel team. We never had travel teams. We just played little league against the kids in your town.
Yeah.
And, the advent of the travel teams, the amount of money that you have to spend, there's a lot of pressure on parents to do that. The fact that, if you're a soccer kid, my girls all, played soccer, and there was a 3-season demand. If you want to be on the travel team, it's fall, and it's indoor winter, and it's spring. I saw it as a lot to ask of a kid. And I'm sure, people would ask me, what was your favorite sport? And I'm sure you played multiple sports. What was your favorite sport? Well, it was the sport I was in at the time.
Yes.
If it was football season, football was my favorite sport. And if it was basketball, well, basketball is my favorite sport. But I don't know. I just hate to see kids have to choose at, age 10 or 11, which one they're going to concentrate on. It's a good topic to debate.
It is. I mean, again, is it pros and cons in both? Yes. But again, to your point, 10, 11 years old, you still trying to figure yourself out.
You're exactly right.
Yeah.
And I think of all the kids that I played with and against by doing multiple, it's just, not only the stories you could talk about, but it was the competitive games that you played in, not only in one sport. And, just the people that I met and the coaches that you played for and their different approaches and what their philosophy was, then you're able to build your philosophy of coaching because you played for so many different coaches in different sports,
Absolutely.
Yep.
And then even with sports here, what is it giving you that's like stuck with you to this day? Just sports, what has it given you?
That's a great question. I kind of think that I'm not a big guy on excuses. And, I had, 3 daughters and I'm not saying it was easy, but the philosophy of this is what your job is, and this is what you have to get to, and just don't look for excuses. Look to get it done. And I think that's part of the way that I coached. Don't be afraid of teachers or coaches that push you to places where you think you can't get, because you probably could get there. And this is, it's been, my thinking in raising my kids and in trying to, go about your everyday life in just, be honest about your effort and what you learned from the voices that you heard from coaches and teammates way back.
Yes.
Are things that you can carry with you, and what you do every day. And one of the things I remember a story about Derek Jeter. And one day Jeter in spring training was put in one of the back fields. I guess they wanted to give him a day off or an easy day.
Okay.
He was playing with guys that were coming up through the minor leagues, and he was busting his tail. And one of them asked him, how come, this is supposed to be maybe one of your easier days, and I see you're out here and you're just busting your tail like you normally do. And they asked him why, and he said, somebody might be watching.
That's right.
That's
right. That's right.
And it's you just, I think, you're supposed to do things whether someone's watching you or not watching you. That shouldn't be much difference in how you go about things.
Mm-hmm.
And that's I learned that. It's not really a cliche, but I did. I learned that from teachers, from coaches, from parents, and so forth.
Yeah.
And it was just it's invaluable. And I think that's why I encourage kids to get involved in whether it's an individual sport, a group sport, because not everybody's going to make it to the top.
Mm-hmm.
Just try to pick up as much as you can from adults who have taught you certain things on the way.
Yeah, no, absolutely, nah. Well said, well said.
Yeah.
Want to put you on the spot a little bit if you okay with it.
Go ahead.
With some questions. Some are pretty random, but we'll work through them.
Yeah.
Okay. When driving, you prefer the turnpike or the parkway?
Parkway. No trucks.
No trucks. Spaghetti or lasagna?
Without a doubt, spaghetti of all different kinds, and of all different sauces and gravies.
Okay. What did you love most, being a kid or an adult?
Jeez. I gotta say, because I my memory's fading a little bit.
Okay.
I'm 72 now, so I gotta think of like some of the things we did as kids. But I would say adult.
Okay. Belleville High or Montclair State?
Oh man. Now you got to understand, if somebody from Belleville High is going to watch this, and then maybe some of my teammates from Montclair State are going to watch this.
Okay.
Oh gee. No, I can't do
That's
that.
fine. That's fine. Totally fine.
There are
totally.
just so many positives from both. I maybe about 8 years ago, because I was so busy, just came off a career of officiating, basketball coaching, and raising a family. I wasn't able to catch up with a lot of high school friends. I stayed in contact with my college friends longer.
Mm-hmm.
And now I got a call from a couple guys that said that we're getting together in Verona with so-and-so from, my high school buddies. I hadn't seen them in 30 years.
Yeah.
And I was able to do it. So I guess, and now I continue to.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess there's a good handful of college guys that I stayed in contact with a little longer than my high school friends, but I've been able to remedy that,
Definitely. Hopefully,
all right, give me another one.
No problem. Glen Ridge, Verona, or Nutley?
All different. I'm grateful for my first experience in Glen Ridge because, like I said, I was mentored. I learned a lot as a young guy who really knew nothing about coaching. I learned a lot in Glen Ridge. I went to Verona, great community. Maybe a little different group of kids, personalities maybe a little bit different. Very difficult to leave.
Mm-hmm.
When I went to Nutley, I wanted to coach in the best league in New Jersey.
Yes.
And I was able to do that. So there's real positives in every one of them.
And interesting.
Yeah.
Verona. Verona came into, I believe, the Colonial Hills when I was a freshman.
That's right.
When I was a freshman.
Right.
These two names to this day I know. two last names that just they were just hell of a
D'Angelo
players.
and
The
DiGiacomo.
Giacomo, bingo. Bingo.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
Yeah, Frankie, he would hit you. Ooh. Yeah, those are two kids that were on I had a really good team in '88, went to the playoffs. D'Angelo, DiGiacomo, Mike Fader. I had
Mike Fader, that's right too. The end, yeah.
Fader.
Basketball
Yeah,
player too. Yes,
he
yes.
could catch it.
Went
Yeah.
to Princeton, I think, right?
Yes, he did. My first couple of years, we had a couple teams that were quick, smaller linemen. Jimmy Montagna, Bruce Carnival, a lineman not real big, but could run. Good athletes, and easy to coach. And like, I said in Glen Ridge, the kids that the Ortman family, Pete Anderson, Mike Stanisi was a terrific quarterback. I don't want to leave a lot of names out, but I went to Nutley, and the talent level there was super. I mean, guys that could. I don't want to leave a name out. And I had a running back at Verona, Steve Aldiro, who was one of the best that I had. And then when I got to Nutley, probably the biggest game changer might have been Donald Solari, because you had to pay so much attention to him. All around, played great defense, return kickoffs, quick. And part of that group that won the '92 state championship was part of the turnaround that we made from 1-8 to losing in the state final in '91 and then winning it in '92. That was a great run.
Yeah, I was fortunate enough to do a year of prep school with Chris Young.
Oh yeah, Chris was a terrific defensive back receiver who went to Colgate.
Yeah, he wound up going to Colgate. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Now, what was your connection to Chris?
Oh, we went to prep school together. We did postgraduate years together after high
did
school.
you?
Yes. Yeah, that's what I met Chris.
He came back to visit me at Nutley, and I'm not sure if he said he did some coaching.
No, he's coaching. I'm forgetting the school, but he's coaching somewhere down south. He's coaching at the collegiate level. Yes.
Great. Oh, really?
Yes.
Great. Yeah.
Yes. So
it's nice to see. A number of my guys that played for me went on to coaching. Some of my assistant coaches got head coaching jobs. That was another thing that was vital to me being successful, was that the assistant coaches I had, we kind of shared philosophy. We all had input into what we did, both in X's and O's and in how to treat certain situations.
Yeah.
And I think if you're not all on the same page, it makes it more difficult to coach.
No, definitely. Now, what did you enjoy most, being a player, coach, or an official?
Wow. I think that I certainly remember, playing days, 3 sports. I had the opportunity to be a starter for 3 years in football and baseball in high school, and 4 years in college in baseball. So there's a lot of memories there. The challenges of coaching. I could tell you I missed the Saturdays.
Okay.
But after I retired, it was hard. The hours that you put in, some of the disappointments. You have maybe one of your best kids gets hurt and he's done for the year.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the I think the losses are harder to take as a coach.
Mm-hmm.
As a player, there's another game,
Yes.
coming up.
Yes.
And then officiating, I missed that. I missed the noise.
Okay.
I miss having to deal with people yelling at you
Mm-hmm.
like for 2 hours. And how do you deal with this?
Yeah.
And I think that helped me actually in coaching, because it helps you tune out the noise from any criticism or whatever.
Yeah.
Because when you're getting called some good names when you're on the court, and
Oh
there's,
yeah. Oh yeah.
and there's
Oh yeah.
whether there's 1,000 people in a stance or 15,000,
Mm-hmm.
But
Definitely.
I took a lot from every phase.
Yeah. Interesting. Best game you ever coached? This is that one game I nailed this one. I got this one.
The state final in Nutley.
Nutley won. Yes. Who did y'all beat that year?
Morris Knowles.
Okay.
We went through and not to minimize my first state championship at age 30 or 31 in Glen Ridge, when we beat Roselle Park. And then in 82 in Glen Ridge, we were playing New Providence, who was in a league above us.
Mm-hmm.
And, as underdogs, we wound up, winning the state championship in 82. I think it was 28-14. Although the next year in the playoffs, they got even. But in 92, it was a culmination of a really tough first year, and then a good second year losing in the finals. And then in 92, this outstanding group that I think when people almost expected that they had a shot at winning a state championship.
Mm-hmm.
And we played through the NNJIL schedule. And having been through that,
yes,
you're playing against St. Joe's. We managed actually to beat St. Joe's the only time we did that year. Having gone through that schedule against playing with teams loaded with Division I players. And then we went into, I think we played a team from North Warren, who had a great passing attack. We beat them in the semifinals, and then we won against Morris Knowles. I think it was 39-6 in the final. And it was almost a relief.
Okay.
But the kids, the town just went.
I can only imagine. Yeah,
Oh.
I can only imagine.
And it's the only one that they've won, the final that they've won. And it was I guess that you'd have to say.
Okay.
That was probably the in terms of preparation and anticipation.
Mm-hmm.
That might have been it.
Okay. Is it what's that one game you would love to just have back? Yeah, that might cross your mind every now and then. Is it one that like?
I was. Yes. Okay. And I know what I would have done.
Mm-hmm.
We played a game against the Paramus Catholic.
Mm-hmm.
That 92 year.
Okay.
Was our only loss. And they had Mike Campanile was a head coach. They came in with run and shoot. We played against him for a number of years. I had a great relationship with Mike Campanile. He was an innovator. And his kids played on a team. A couple of them went on to play Division I football, but it was at Paramus Catholic, and the final was 32-27.
Mm.
And we had a 4th and 1 on about the 35-yard line late in the game against their 35.
Okay.
And we decided to pound it in on a, like a belly play. We spent 1 or 2 years running wing T, which was unusual for me because I'm basically an eye guy. But we ran wing T. When we ran belly, got stopped. And I should have run belly keep.
Okay.
We had Frank DeMeo was our quarterback. He could run like the wind.
Mm-hmm.
And in that formation, everybody was bunched. And I could see, I could just see him going down the sidelines if I called that play.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I it's unusual. I think about that and I know exactly why it was not the right call.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. Those
And
we all like to have back.
Believe me, there were a lot of not the right calls.
Mm. Yes.
But that was the that was the one I kind of remember better because it was a little later.
Yeah.
If I had one to bring back, that would be the one.
Now, throughout all your stops, is there was a favorite play you loved to run that you brought with you? Or you might have variated, it might have deviated depending where you was at. Was it you had a favorite play?
Well, I could tell you a number of things that we were successful at. And
Okay.
when I was at Glen Ridge, had good tailbacks,
Mm-hmm.
and we ran toss sweep a lot.
Okay.
When I was at Verona, I think we had some really good, smart linemen, and we ran different variations of sprint draw and
Mm-hmm.
belly, which are basically some power stuff.
Okay.
And then I guess the most fun I had when we went back to run an I in Nutley. I went to a lot of clinics, and I think I'd like to consider that I was a student and tried to learn as much as I could. And whatever I learned, I told everybody I thought of it, but I actually found somebody else. But I went to a lot of Penn State clinics, and they were doing stuff out of sprint draw, where they'd run a combination of 3 things. They'd run a dig with the split end,
Mm-hmm.
and a different coverage corner, and a different coverage curl.
Mm-hmm.
And we ran the life out of that.
Yeah.
Where you fake sprint draw, which you ran a lot, and you would, depending on what the coverage was, we got a lot of life out of running dig, because you'd have underneath, middle, and deep stuff, and I think more often than not, the middle one was open a lot. And that worked against both coverages, cover 3, cover 2,
Mm-hmm.
and then we'd also run corner route out of against cover 2, which was the area that you're vulnerable to there.
Mm.
And we ran the life out of that. But in the different teams, I would like to think that I'm not considered a guy who threw the ball all the time or who ran power all the time. I think you got to match it up to what you got.
Yes.
And if your strength is you got good linemen, you got good tailback, and your strength wasn't throwing it all the time, that's what you'd concentrate on running best. And then there were years when I had kids who could throw it and catch it. Just an example, when I was at Glen Ridge, we had a quarterback, Mike Stanisi, and a receiver, Rob Zuner, who were throwing the ball to each other from the time they were like 8 years old.
Okay.
And, we just, in the early 80s, we threw it a lot, and that was not what they were doing a lot in the early 80s. And in Nutley, we did both.
Mm.
Some years we had good tailbacks, and there were some years where we were better at throwing it, you know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I don't think you can get yourself tied up to any one philosophy that my teams throw it, or my teams run power.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if whatever you got, you ride with it, and you know, that's what we try to do. Now I think I'm looking at a lot of teams that run spread.
Yes.
And they zone block a lot. With the advent of 7-on-7 passing camps, I think teams throw the ball a lot more now than they used to. I mean, look, when I was in high school, I was at Belleville, if we threw the ball 12 times in a game, it was an aerial attack. Throughout coaching, you know, if we threw it 25 times, that was a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I guess there are, you know, teams that throw the ball 30, 35,
Mm-hmm.
you know, 35 times.
Yes.
Wow. But I think, like I said, with 7-on-7, you know, camps, passing camps, I think that helps if you like to throw the ball, certainly.
Mm-hmm. This one here probably get you in trouble, but best player you ever coached.
Best player I ever coached.
Yes.
Okay. Geez. Well, I would have to say it was Donald Solari, all around.
Okay.
Size, speed, played both ends as a safety and a tailback. Close. Pete Anderson was a lineman game changer at Glen Ridge.
Yeah.
Went to Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
The tailbacks I had at Glen Ridge, Mark, Steve, Greg Ortman,
Mm-hmm.
Mike Stanisi could throw the ball as well as any quarterback I've seen. I go to Verona. I have terrific linemen.
The line, yes.
That we were able to run counter tray, which not many high school teams were running then. You know, the Redskins play.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
2 backside linemen pulling, tailback misstep counter.
Yeah.
And we did it with a couple of great, like really quick linemen. And just to give you an example, the first game I coached in Verona, we played Summit. And I guess the teams were even, or maybe Summit might have been favored, but first quarter, we get the ball and we run sprint draw, counter tray, little trap with Steve Aldiro, who had like over 200 in a game.
Mm-hmm.
We got the ball to start the quarter and we scored as the quarter ended. Like 14 play drive of not throwing it once, just running it. Those were real influential type players in Verona, and you know, in Nutley, along with Solari, we had a 3-year quarterback, Frank DeMeo, a couple of really good receivers, tough size linemen, linebackers.
Mm-hmm.
Another tailback, good tailback, Robert Carey. But I would have to say that the one guy who could change the game fastest was probably Solari.
Okay.
And now I'm going to get phone calls.
Nah, it's the fun
I'm
of it.
gonna,
That's the fun. This is the fun of it. I mean, this years later, this is all fun. Everybody knows that.
yeah.
Everybody knows that. I
Yeah.
was wanted to ask, what's the best part about being Rich San Filippo?
Right now, I'm content.
Mm-hmm.
I worked hard. I have a lot of friends, a great family.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm healthy.
Yeah.
I was in the gym yesterday.
Okay.
I still play golf. I stopped running when I wasn't getting paid to run anymore
Yeah.
as a basketball official.
Yes.
But I get to the gym
Understandable.
I regularly.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thankful for my health, and I have like tons of people that I could still connect with
Mm-hmm.
through years of teaching and coaching.
Yes.
And I would not trade my life with anybody. So I'll tell you the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the people that I've coached against, I've tried to have a lot of fun with them. I've always appreciated when it was fair and it wasn't life and death kill.
Mm-hmm.
When the competition was really ramped up, but you could see each other in the off season. It was always cordial, friendly, and sometimes more. So I wouldn't change anything.
That's all right. That's good to hear. So if you wrote a book on your life, what would you call it?
Still unfinished.
That's all right. Yes. Yes. You're right. And at this, go ahead.
I have three daughters, and they're in their early 30s, and that is part of the unfinished.
I'm coming.
You never stop
to you.
parenting.
I'm coming to you. I gotta have a 7-year-old, so I'm coming to you about girls.
Man,
my only child. I got a 7-year-old daughter, so I'm coming to you.
you enjoy it now. I remember when up until my kids were. What was my wife kids me about this. The fun, the memories that you're on vacation, your whatever memories you have, fun stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Then they hit 13.
Uh-oh
is right. And then you think they're never going to like you again. But then they get into college, and those years are pretty tough.
Mm-hmm.
And then after college, to my surprise, part of the nice fun part about it is that they actually like to hang around with you again.
Wow.
But there'll be a period there where they don't want to.
Nah, good to know.
Yeah.
Good to know. Now, this point in your life where you're at, what advice would you give that senior year Belleville High, Rich San Filippo? What advice would you give him?
That it's whatever you accomplished and whoever you met, there's a lot more goals that you should try to get to.
Mm-hmm.
There's 3/4 of a lifetime ahead of you, and you can't stop when you think, oh, you've accomplished something.
Mm-hmm.
You have to keep getting to some goals that you set, and just because you're 17 years old and things have been great, you got a long road ahead, and you got to really give it your best. Otherwise, it might not work out the way you want it to.
Yeah. Coach, I want to say thank you for this time. obviously knowing the name throughout my travels, being an outsider looking in, the accomplishments you have made throughout your life here, but just hearing, you a coach, educator, father, husband, et cetera, et cetera. I can only imagine all the lives that you've touched. I just want to say thank you again. Like I said, I've this time, even a small little window of time with you, me just being touched as well too. So I can only imagine. And again, like you said, there's a lot more to go. It's unfinished. And like I said,
Yeah.
from going to play golf, hopefully in a couple of days,
Yeah.
to whatever else is going to be here, Coach, I am totally taken back by this, and I just wanted to say thank you.
Well, no, thank you. I had no idea that like I said, I knew you were doing these podcasts. I didn't figure that you'd be contacting me because I've been out of it for a while. But no, I thoroughly enjoy it, and believe me, I've gotten as much out of the people that I coached.
Mm.
I know I probably affected them in some ways, and they've affected me
Yes.
in equal ways. So,
And I will say this, and again, this is one thing I do have over you. I had to think about it. I'm 1-0 against you. I was 1-0 against you.
You beat us?
My sophomore year. Yeah, so I'm 1-0, and I think you left right. That was your last year in Verona.
Yeah. Okay.
Your last year in Verona. So
yeah, we had some great games with Immaculate, and okay, you better hold on to that. Make it a bragging point or whatever.
years later, but outside of that, this has been fantastic, and I get excited about all of this. And again, I think my wife, she's probably about to hear this too, because she not heard about it. But I mentioned I was talking to you and everything else here. So
yeah.
But thanks.
No, thanks, Evan. I enjoyed it equally. Let me ask you, where can I got a couple players actually that I mentioned I was going to do this. Where could this be seen? This
Sure, no problem. Once I finish it, give me about a week or two to have it out. I'll send you the link first.
Oh, okay.
And you can send it to them, and then I could definitely just send you a link, and you could just send it to whoever here. And I might ask you for a guide too, if they're willing to talk. So let's see if anybody's willing to any ex-players be willing to get on here too as well.
Sure.
But I'll reach out about that another time. But
okay. Thank you. My pleasure, Evan. Thank you.
Likewise. Be well and be safe.
You bet.
All right. Good stuff. Good stuff. As always, just sit back, soak it in. Just, the wisdom Coach Filippo had. I mean, the people he's influenced, coaching, whether it's officiating, I think just being an everyday man, even outside of the whole sport, so what have you. So enjoyed it immensely. So with that being said, though, I'm just going to step away. I put my hand over my heart. That means I feel you. Yeah.